Hey everybody, I'm Kiwi for Culturalist Theory, where we drop lists and rankings of your favorite artists from the 90s to now. In this video, we are ranking the 8 studio albums from Monica. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss a list. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to it. At number 8, All Eyes on Me. Question: if an album drops in Japan first, does it make a sound? I'll get to the answer in a sec. If you don't know much about this album, you're not alone. However, true Monica fans know. This was Monica's 3rd album and was supposed to be a coming-of-age record to help transition her from a teen star to an adult artist. It was released on Clive Davis's J Records, and for some reason, this album came out in Japan first. And it's one of the issues with the project. You can tell by the heavy bootlegging and file sharing that the album had made enough noise on the internet to undercut its stateside release in just a few weeks. To make matters worse, the title track and lead single, All Eyes on Me, didn't create much buzz, and the second single, Too Hood, fared even worse. So days after its US release, All Eyes on Me was pulled from the stores. The album itself contains a lot of samples, including the opening track, I'm Back, which was actually considered for the album title at one point, has Herb Alpert's Rise sample, which is also prominently featured on the Notorious B.I.G.'s Hypnotize. Michael Jackson's PYT is sampled for the track All Eyes on Me. You Deserve has a Tupac Hail Mary sample, and If I Were Your Girl has a piece of C Murder's Down for My Ends. With so many samples, and very recognizable ones at that, you can say that everything sounds like something else. The good news is that some of the tracks that survived to be reworked for the next album After the Storm feel original and authentic to Monica. Here on All Eyes on Me is the first appearance of the songs Breaks My Heart and You Should Have Known, to give you an idea. But we barely got to hear any of that at the time, and it looks like the internet won on this one. At number 7, The Makings of Me. Monica's 5th album features some heavy-hitting producers who definitely left their marks on this project. The album opens with Every Time the Beat Drops, where the Franchise Boys are actually the first voices you hear on the album and the song. This record is really where the culture was at the time. A trendy ringtone style beat featuring Jermaine Dupri's Snap prominent on the song. Monica does manage to keep up with the record, and she rides the beat perfectly. For some, this lead single was a palate cleanser, a lighthearted dance track leaving the heavier heartbreak to the side for a minute. But for others, it left a bad taste in their mouths for riding a trend, and debatable whether it fit into her catalog. That's a question for the Swiss Beats track Raw too. JD also produced tracks Why Her and Getaway, which are written by someone else you might know, PJ Morton. The second single, A Dozen Roses, You Remind Me, was produced by Missy Elliott and features a sample from Curtis Mayfield's Makings of You. And yes, that was the inspiration behind the album title as well. Missy also produced Doing Me Right and Gotta Move On. The album debuted at number 1 on the R&B hip hop chart and number 8 on the Billboard 200. However, neither single cracked the top 40, and the record topped out at a little over 300,000 copies, a less than stellar success from someone of Monica's caliber. At number 6, Code Red. Code Red was dropped in 2015 and is her most recent album, and starts with an up-tempo, semi-chaotic title track featuring her daughter and serial collaborator Missy Elliott. Then we hear Lil Wayne's Lighter Flicker and verse on the album's only single, Just Right For Me. The first 3 songs on the album are up-tempo records. There are still traditional yet contemporary R&B sound on songs like I Know and Deep, and a couple of songs that might remind you of something else. Call My Name is like another version of Destiny's Child, Say My Name. Hustler's Ambition featuring Akon puts you in the mind of 2 songs from Wyclef Jean. Gone to November and 911 featuring Mary J. Blige. Missy is not as prominent on this project, only featured on the aforementioned opening title track Code Red, though her VA homeboy Timbaland is all over Love Just Ain't Enough and All Men Lie. I mean, all over. Maybe a little too much Tim. Other collaborators on this project were Polo the Don, DJ Hard Work, Jamal Jones, and Blanco. Her talent is undeniable, it just felt like it never completely found its home on this record. At number 5, New Life. New Life is Monica's 7th album. It opens with a phone conversation with Mary J. Blige, followed by a long-awaited reunion with Brandy on It All Belongs to Me. Even though it didn't quite recapture the energy of their 1998 Grammy Award-winning hit, The Boy Is Mine, it was nice to see these 2 stars on the same side. New Life feels like she's moved beyond trying to keep up with the trends and settled into an adult contemporary lane. Though there's a little bit of reggae on Man Who Has Everything and a little bit of a country feel on Time to Move On, there's still the edgy and attitude-infused tracks we're accustomed to from Monica, mixed with the vulnerability and softness she's mastered. She still worked with some of the same collaborators like Jermaine Dupri, Missy Elliott, Brian Michael Cox, and Kanan Lamb, this time adding duo Earl and E, Polo the Don, and Rico Love to the mix. Jasmine Sullivan has a couple of writing credits on Until It's Gone and Cry, as well as India Shawn on Without You. Other highlights on this album are Big Mistake and Take a Chance, featuring Wale. Before we get to the top half of our list, Monica has put out a couple of singles independently. Which one is your favorite? Trenches, Commitment, Me Plus You, or Be Human? Let us know in the comments. At number 4, Miss Thang. Monica's debut album, Miss Thang, came out on Dallas Austin's Rowdy Records, who is credited with discovering Monica and serves as the album's EP. It was a teenage Monica's attitude that anchored this project and set her apart from her contemporaries. While the album includes remakes of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's Tell Me If You Still Care and Lattimore's Let's Straighten It Out, which calls back to older R&B classics, it was Monica's original music that would make her an R&B staple. Her debut single, Don't Take It Personal, Just One of Them Days, produced and co-written by Dallas Austin, spent 2 weeks on top of the R&B chart and went platinum in the United States. The follow-up single, Before You Walk Out of My Life, was originally intended to go to Toni Braxton before being recorded by the 14-year-old Monica. This track also topped the R&B chart and made Monica the youngest recording artist to have 2 consecutive #1 songs on the chart. Add the album track Why I Love You So Much, and you've got a whole relationship from start to finish. Miss Thang was a solid debut album and earned Monica a Billboard Music Award. Number 3, The Boy Is Mine. The second album was again helmed by Dallas Austin and starts off with a song he wrote and produced, Street Symphony, a track where Monica calls her bad boy to come home from the streets, rumored to be about her beau, C. Murder. But you know why we're here. The Boy Is Mine. The title track capitalized on the rumored rivalry between Monica and fellow teen R&B singer Brandy. They rode that wave for 13 weeks and all the way to the Grammy stage, picking up the award for Best R&B Performance by a Group or Duo. Other highlights from this album include the second single, The First Night, produced by Jermaine Dupri, that went to #1, For You I Will, written by Diane Warren and appears on the 1996 Space Jam soundtrack, and Angel of Mine, which is actually a cover of a British R&B group's Eternal hit song and also went to #1 for Monica. And because Monica is so Atlanta, she has features from fellow ATLians Outkast on Gonna Be Fine and 112 on a remake of Right Here Waiting. There's also another Diane Warren penned song, Inside, and a Misty Blue remake that are decent. That's 3 remakes if you're counting. The Boy Is Mine debuted at #2 on the R&B album charts, released 3 #1 singles, and sold more than 3 million copies. So it's safe to say that she avoided the sophomore slump. At number 2, After the Storm. On After the Storm, there's a new Monica sound that just works. Shout out to Missy Elliott, who took over the reins of the project from Jermaine Dupri, who was EP of the scrapped All Eyes on Me project that I mentioned earlier. Along with dealing with news of that project, Monica was also still dealing with the grief after witnessing the suicide of her boyfriend in 2000 and the arrest of C. Murder in 2002. Missy seemed to add a lightness and infectious energy and just fun to Monica's existing sound in a combination that worked. The lead single from the album was So Gone and brought Monica back to the top. It was her first #1 single on the R&B and hip hop chart since Angel of Mine in 1999 and #10 on the Hot 100. Knock Knock was another banger courtesy of Missy and co-produced by Kanye West. You Should Have Known Better was a track that came over from All Eyes on Me and fit right in on this project. The other carryovers were Breaks My Heart, I Wrote This Song, Ain't Gonna Cry No More, and Hurts the Most. There are also verses from DMX on Don't Gotta Go Home, and if you watched our DMX ranking, you know which album the companion track is on. If you don't, check out that video right after this one. Busta Rhymes is also featured on the So Gone remix at the end of the album. The remix is a true reimagining of the song, a reworked beat, and obviously more rapping from Busta and Monica, which works because it balances out with more harmonizing. Shout out to Tweet on the background vocals. So when Missy says she's gonna hit you with a high remix, she's not lying. This project fared much better than its heavily pirated predecessor and became Monica's first #1 album. Just before we get to the #1 on our list, let us know, if you were Monica, who would you choose to EP your next project? Missy, JD, Dallas Austin, or Polo the Don? Comment below. While you're there, go ahead and like this video. Now back to the list. At #1, Still Standing. Still Standing comes after a near 4-year break between projects. We find an even more confident Monica who's not afraid to bear all and tell you exactly where she thinks she's supposed to be. It was Monica's strongest vocal and most vulnerable performance to date. Monica continues to collaborate with her mainstays, Missy Elliott, Jermaine Dupri, and Polo the Don, and this time they create an album that's R&B through and through. The lead single, Everything to Me, co-written by Missy, Jasmine Sullivan, and Kanan Lamb over the Denise Williams Silly sample, was perfect, balancing a classic with forward-leaning sound, lyrics, and arrangement, which Missy and Monica do so well. The song spent 7 weeks at #1 on the R&B and hip-hop chart. The follow-up, Love All Over Me, is another love song with an emotional performance by Monica. There are no skips on this album, so everything is a highlight. One in a Lifetime, Stay or Go, and Mirror, to name a few. And if you're looking for up-tempo, you can find a little more street Monica on the title track, Still Standing, featuring her cousin Ludacris, and an 80s bop Monica on If You Were My Man with a Tina Marie Square Biz type rap on it. This was a well-rounded, beautiful project from Monica that debuted at #1 on the top R&B and hip-hop albums. It was Grammy nominated for Best R&B Album and Song for Everything to Me. And that's everything I have for now. What do you think? Did we get it right? Leave a comment below with the rankings of your favorite Monica songs or albums. Don't forget to thumbs up this video, and while you're here, subscribe to Culturalist Theory so you don't miss a list. I'm QB. I'll see you next list.